Hey guys, we have a full moon in Aries to talk about today, and this full moon in Aries in particular is a little bit different. An Aries moon and Aries energy is usually about sort of taking action, being inspired, jumping headfirst into something, but this Aries moon is really actually calling for a bit of reflection, a bit of meditation, and some very careful planning and attention to detail before we launch out or take any type of significant action. There's also a lot about this full moon that has to do with healing, some very deep, long-standing wounds that perhaps have been holding us back in a lot of ways. There's a strong emphasis on our relationship to ourselves, what we want, what we value, how that plays out in dynamics with others, and also what changes we need to make in order to really start to embody these truths that we are coming to now. So there is a lot to talk about, you guys, in this full moon as it's playing out. It is likely to have some pretty significant impacts on a more global geopolitical level as well. We may see a lot of stuff along those lines unfolding over the next couple weeks. Let's jump into this chart, you guys. Let's take a look at how these aspects are playing out, how the symbolism that's presenting, and what we may be able to anticipate as we go through this day and as this full moon cycle unfolds. Welcome back to my channel, you guys. My name is Aubrey, and this is my astrological analysis for this full moon in Aries that we have playing out October 9th, 2022. It is going to be happening at precisely 4:55 p.m. Eastern time, 16 degrees, 32 minutes of Libra and Aries. So if you guys have been following my work for a while, if you're familiar with my channel, you know that we read the Sabian symbols here. And when we read the Sabian symbols, which are a group of symbols that describe each and every one of the 360 degrees of the zodiac, we round up a degree because we account for the energy that is coming in, because energy moves in waves. So we look at the wave of energy that is pulling in, we read the symbol associated with that degree instead of the wave of energy that is sort of like pulsing out and waning out and dissolving. So I'm going to be looking specifically at, that being said, 17 degrees of Libra and Aries for the placement of our full moon today. Of course, the full moon happens each month when the sun and the moon come into the exact to the minute opposition to each other. And this time around, we are in a Libra cycle ruled by Venus. So we are talking about the full moon in Aries opposing the sun in the sign of Libra. And Libra cycles always have a tendency to put an emphasis on relationships. Number one, because this is a sign of Libra, it's ruled by Venus. Venus rules relationships. It's also associated with the 7th house of the birth chart, which also rules relationships. But when we think about it, this full moon is generally very relationship oriented as well, because the opposing sign of Libra is the sign of Aries. Venus rules Libra, Mars rules Aries. Hence, we have again another reference to relationship dynamics in the context of the moon being ruled by the masculine, which the moon is generally the feminine, right? And also the sun, which is the masculine in terms of the sun and the moon polarity component dynamic of things, in the sign of Libra being ruled by the feminine. So we've got masculine and feminine dynamics sort of balancing each other out in opposition, reflecting off of each other, bringing up these relationship dynamics, plus the Libra cycle itself representing and ruling relationships. So there is a major theme going on every Libra cycle, every Aries full moon on relationships. But this time around, you guys, I feel like there is an even stronger emphasis on relationships, but more so this moon to me is presenting as an emphasis or a significance or a priority or just a stronger level of focus in terms of the relationship that we have to our own selves. Like if we're looking at it in terms of like the little equation thing, it's definitely like self is more taking a grander, more significant role than kind of others. The way that I feel like the nature of the energetics of this moon are really playing out. We've learned a lot, you guys, over this past couple of months. The Virgo cycle, all of September, moving through October. There has been a major universal push to really show us our personal truth, with Jupiter in the sign of Aries right now as well, where our full moon is. Jupiter there is also putting an expanded emphasis on this personal truth dynamic of things. So over this past couple of months, there has definitely been, we've been going through sort of a collective process of rediscovering like our authentic preferences in a lot of ways. Mercury's whole retrograde process cycle that we are merging out of now was really very like much colored and characterized by an intertwinement with like the Venusian energies. We had Mercury and Venus in a mutual reception for while Mercury was in the sign of Libra before Mercury went retrograde, and Venus was in the sign of Virgo. And Mercury and Venus have come to a couple of conjunctions and just recently made a second conjunction during Mercury's retrograde, and we'll make another conjunction coming up here when Mercury gets like passed out of his shadow and comes to meet Venus in the sign of Libra. I think that this conjunction will happen in Libra, but there's definitely been this emphasis on really like rediscovering, reprioritizing, gaining a new relationship via our understanding and our perception and our thoughts to our own selves. Rediscovering what we want in relationships, rediscovering our personal value, rediscovering our personal truth, and how that changes the various dynamics and dimensions of the relationships that we have already established in our life, and that, you know, the way that we want to experience them going forward, essentially. I do also, that being said, you know, we've been going through this process of really discovering, rediscovering. It really is boiling down to like our personal preferences, especially in regards to how we want to relate to ourselves and how we want to relate to others. But I feel like during this Libra full moon and over this next couple of weeks, these truths that we have discovered or rediscovered, I feel like are going to be really kind of like motivating us more, like motivating our actions more so than perhaps they have in the past. And I feel like a part of this process also could be some wounding that goes on in relationships over this next period of time. Now, we have the full moon itself occurring within a 2-degree orb conjunction to Chiron. That's a pretty tight conjunction. And we know that we're talking about this relationship axis. We also have the full moon happening in a 3-degree orb opposition to Venus, who therefore is in a 3-degree orb conjunction to the sun, burned in the rays of the sun, combust. So again, because Venus is conjunct the sun, like lost in the rays of the sun right now, and the moon itself, our emotions in the sign of Aries is in the conjunction to Chiron. I do feel like, again, this is another reference indicating that the main focus right now over this period of time is likely to be have things to do with where and how we've been wounded in relationships and what we need to do at this point in time to heal ourselves in that context, in those regards, with less of a focus and less of a priority being placed on the other people or the relationships themselves. There's a lot being indicated in the energy heading into this full moon that, you know, it's interesting because an Aries full moon, Aries, this is the first sign of the zodiac. This is cardinal fire. This is generally about like jumping head first into things and taking action and, you know, assertiveness and courage and willpower and motivation and like getting out there and making something happen. But Mars, the ruler of Aries right now, you guys, this full moon is slowing down and preparing to go retrograde at the end of this month. The full moon is also making aspects to Saturn, and we do have an aspect, a grand trine actually. It's not exact, but there is a grand trine playing out in the sky for our full moon, featuring the sun in opposition to the moon, Saturn, which slows things down, and also Mars, ruler of the full moon. So Saturn in aspect to Mars, especially, you know, in a positive aspect, this does promise success, but there is a need to slow down, to be careful, to be very practical, and to plan, and to be diligent about things, and to be very discerning in the actions that we are taking and in the choices that we are making. This is a very different Aries full moon because there's honestly more galactic guidance that is supporting us being reflective and, like I was saying earlier, you know, sort of sitting back, you know, being more observant, meditating on things, and not rushing forward and jumping into action, especially in the context of relationship dynamics. This is very much a cycle that is trying to show us something. We're in a full moon. Full moons are about exposure and illumination and bringing things to like their fullest potential. And what I feel like is being exposed and illuminated to us in this energy, with Jupiter also in the sign of Aries, really is much so more in regards to our own truth, or perhaps the truth of what's really been operating in the context of our relationship dynamics, and maybe how that's wounded us, or maybe how our own personal wounding stemming from, childhood trauma, or just unhealed or unresolved trauma or wounds is maybe contributing to us attracting, magnetizing, manifesting, and finding ourselves in relationships that are wounding us. This is an energy that is trying to help us break ourselves free, again, like I say, from karmic cycles that have been keeping us in toxic relationship patterns that have not been aligned with our personal truth, our authenticity, and that which supports our authentic growth. We also do have Saturn and Uranus in an exact to the degree square, the fourth square, both retrograde for this full moon. This is things suddenly, unexpectedly breaking down or being rearranged or being realigned in a way that might feel very, very, very out of our control. But this is a destiny activating transit, and universe is taking us out of situations that we have created that are limiting to our ability to rise into our potential, activate our destiny, align with our authentic truth, plucking us out of those situations and putting us in situations where that process can be facilitated. We are all learning, you guys, that we have wings in this energy. That is what universe is trying to do for us through this Saturn square Uranus energy. Take us out of any predefined, limited viewpoint of ourselves and our potential and our life path, and show us who we really are and who we were always meant to be. But it's through the process of pushing us off a cliff in a lot of circumstances and giving us no choice other than to discover that actually, yes, we can fly. Because once we discover that we do have those wings, it's how could I have ever lived without knowing this, or without this dimension of myself or my soul or my experience? And as a result of that, I can finally experience a greater sense of fulfillment in my life and not always feel like something's missing, something's lacking, not being able to understand or get to the root of where this depression or where this anxiety or where this feeling out of place is stemming from, because I have discovered who I truly am. And I never would have figured that out if it wasn't for this very difficult and uncomfortable process and experience that forced me to make these personal revelations. This is the energy. We are healing our soul, Moon conjunct Chiron. We're healing our soul. And this really may be happening through having to get some wounds triggered. But any wounds that are being triggered, especially in regards to childhood issues, past traumas, generational traumas, this is the time. We are in a period of transmutation and alchemization of soul-based trauma. That is what universe is helping us to clear, transcend, and overcome in this energy. And it's also being spoken about by the fact, you guys, the day before this full moon, as I said, is happening on October 9th. On October 8th, Pluto, ruling our subconscious programming in the deepest, darkest aspects and recesses of our psyche, is stationing direct in the sky. We've been going through a very internalized process of reprogramming our subconscious mind on some very deep and subconscious levels. And with Pluto stationing direct, and also another aspect of this is Mercury, the mind himself, currently direct in this his own sign of rulership in the sign of Virgo, is also going to be in a trine with Pluto for our full moon. And this is these transformations that have been going on within the deepest parts of our mind and our subconscious programming, finally facilitating our ability to really heal and regenerate. And that is really being described through the placement of the moon next to Chiron as well. So strong focus, you guys, on relationships, especially in the context of where we've been hurt in relationships and what we've learned from that. Chiron is the wounded healer, teacher, master archetype. When we are dealing with Chiron, this is where we are initially, usually in childhood, usually around age 5 or so, experience some type of very, traumatic wounding that can create these schisms almost, or this subconscious programming that sets us up for this trajectory of constantly experiencing additional wounding and more wounding and attracting and creating this like cycle of just whatever our initial wound was happening, perpetuating patterns like over and over and over again, because this is what is initially imprinted in our mind. This is our wound. And once we are set up on this journey, we now have to spend however long it takes learning how to heal ourselves from that. And it's the process of, first of all, gaining an awareness of what took place, how it affected us, how our psyche has formed around it as a result of that, and what that has done in terms of what we are attracting and experiencing in our lives as we've gone through life. Whenever we are dealing with these Chiron issues or these black moon issues or even these Pluto issues as well, this brings us up against these powerful forces that a lot of times feel like they're breaking us or just wounding us over and over and over again. But the point is to try to help us gain an awareness of where we are actually holding on to this pain within ourselves, within our psyches, and therefore, because of the laws of this reality, perpetually attracting that back into our experience. Once we can figure that out, once we can realize, okay, this is what happened, this is where this was stemming from, this is the programming that my mind and my subconscious has created as a result of that, and this is the vibration that I'm holding in that aspect of my psyche that is perpetually drawing more of that into my experience. What do I need to do to release it? What do I need to do to heal it? What do I need to do to alchemize, to transcend, to overcome? How can I use this lesson then as an experience that translates into wisdom that propels me into a greater state of self-mastery, where I can now become a conscious co-creator with God and universe and really like play a role in consciously creating what I wish to experience in my life, instead of constantly perpetually creating, drawing, attracting to myself that which I don't want to experience, but is a reflection of the vibration I hold within me because of this original wound, this original trauma. That's what the hero's journey is. It's gaining the wisdom through what we learn about our own darkness to transmute that darkness into light, into experience, into self-mastery, and ultimately through our example become a guiding light for others who are navigating the same path. The hero's journey it's a solitary journey, and it can only be done like mano a mano. It can only be done on our own. But going through that process also makes us a powerful guide and example for others, because as we step into our, personal truth, as we begin to embody the wisdom that we have gained through the experience, as we transmute and release and overcome these lower frequencies that kept us attached to these negative and karmic cycles, we become a bridge, right, from one way of being to another way of being that others can also use to cross from, these places of the lower frequencies and the lower vibrations and being attached to our states of victimhood to gaining this conscious awareness, this profound spiritual awakening, and an ability to co-create with God and universe. And that also is very synonymous, you guys, for our transition into the age of Aquarius. It's very much the same thing. The transition into the age of Aquarius is this process of self-actualization, which is very, very similar to what the hero's journey represents as well. So this moon in our midpoint of the year in this very significant Libra turning point cycle in the conjunction to Chiron is really indicating that we are at the point of time right now where it is our duty to sort of take our healing process seriously and come to a place where we are transmuting our wounding into understanding that allows us to free ourselves from that which we've been attached to, that has been holding us back from who we are meant to become with this destiny activating energy, and the path that we are meant to move forward and walk down now, which ultimately, like I said, is showing us our wings, which will lead to this greater sense of overall fulfillment, because we will finally be able to live life in a way that we were always meant to, which will do a lot to fill a lot of maybe the holes that had been existing in us up until this point in time. And that is where we are going as we are heading towards this age of Aquarius. But there may be some wounding that is triggered in the process of this process. We are going to be, I feel, taking things quite seriously over the course of this full moon, being a little bit self-disciplined, focused, and looking to use our energy in more practical ways. Remember, with Mars ruling our full moon in the sign of Aries in a square to Neptune for our full moon. First of all, this full moon is really setting off this Neptune square Mars dynamic, but also this is bringing lower physical energy, and we do need to sort of reserve our energy and just take good care of ourselves, mind our daily lifestyle, take our vitamins, have a good diet, make sure that we are, exercising a little bit, not pushing ourselves, but just really, trying to take good care of ourselves on a day-to-day basis, because this can have a tendency of lowering our immune system, and just like it can represent just like a greater tendency to get sick and stuff like that. So we don't want to be pushing ourselves in this energy, but we do want to be making sure that we are self-disciplined and that we are not just sort of letting ourselves go to whatever in this Mars-Neptune square energy. Now, Mars and Neptune in square, this can also represent discouragement, lies, and deceptions. And with Saturn in square to Uranus, this next couple weeks could also bring some, big setbacks or unexpected shakeups, or like interference with our plans or our trajectory or what we thought was happening. This can also represent big storms, issues and wars going on over oil, earthquakes for sure. Global and geopolitical issues, I feel like, are really going to be heating up and ramping up over this next couple of weeks. And with this moon, I do feel like this full moon in Aries, though, opposite Venus, shining the light, I do feel like this is going to be showing us people's true colors as a part of this process. It's like we are seeing the truth about ourselves, and as a reflection of that, we are very much seeing the truth about others as well. I think that there's going to be some themes of breaking commitments and the end of things that perhaps were long-standing or we thought might endure forever, kind of unexpectedly happening in this energy, making some serious choices. This is also being represented, and retreating, pausing, taking a break, inner child healing, the hero's journey, like I said. And there is also, which I have not mentioned yet, a major emphasis going on financial, economic, resource, supply chain based issues as well. There could be some major financial upheaval that we see over the course of this full moon cycle between now and this next couple weeks as well. We have a spiritual mission to heal ourselves, though, over this period of time, and to, as I was saying, transmute our states of victimhood into self-mastery, become conscious creators of our own reality, and lead others through the same process by our living example. This is very important at this point in time, you guys. Not only is this being indicated in terms of, the universal blueprint and what is really being activated and humanity is being called towards at this point in time, but there's practical reasons why we need to do this. We really need to, all of us, bring ourselves to a greatest state of self-understanding and being grounded within our personal truth, and solid in our self-empowerment at this point in time, because we are in a transition of ages, and there are possibly some pretty significant societal breakdowns that are pending through the rest of this year and into next year. And we really can do a lot to offset that by taking back our own personal power, realizing and learning about our strengths, and having confidence and faith and trust in ourselves to be, able to endure and sustain and persevere through more difficult times. And, coming from this place of being healed and attracting less negativity based on holding less negativity within us, and being able to see opportunities and potentials, and being able to align ourselves with this co-creative, collaborative force with universe to help us attract, magnetize, draw in the opportunities and the partnerships and the connections that will truly benefit us as we are going through these times in various ways. This is important. We are all sort of in personal boot camp right now, preparing to really learn to stand on our own 2 feet a lot more than perhaps maybe we have become accustomed to over the last several, decades or 100 years. I don't know, but it's just time, you guys. We're transitioning out of the age of Pisces, which is an age of blind trust, blind faith, essentially, and we are moving into the age of Aquarius, which is the age of faith through knowledge. It's like we are not just having to believe what the people in charge tell us anymore, which was very much the hierarchical approach of disseminating knowledge and information throughout the age of Pisces. In this paradigm we are transitioning into, we know because we've experienced it ourselves, and it creates such a stronger and more tangible faith, which contributes to our ability to have such a stronger and more tangible impact in terms of bridging the physical and the spiritual worlds. That is where we are headed in all of this, and universe is using these experiences to show us the reality of our faith in the world. And it may happen in a complicated way, and it may require us to really question our faith throughout this process, but it is coming back with a vengeance. I'm telling you guys, like, we don't see what is playing out right now, and we're in the midst of a very spiritual battle, and there are major dimensions of the truth of reality that are hidden in the fog, for sure. And we just need to not rest too solid in the appearances of things right now, because that's not necessarily how things are going to look when the fog clears and the dust settles. But it is time to remember, you guys, who we are, and to have the courage to embody our physical truth. And that is what is going to help us as we are going through this period of time. Now, let's talk about all these aspects specifically. This full moon happening in the sign of Aries, conjunct Chiron. Like I said, emotional wounds, emotional healing. The full moon happening in Aries. Aries is the sign of the self, courage, independence, strength. This is a very independent energy. Again, I feel like we may be stepping back a little bit, and there may be a larger focus on our own personal emotional needs as we go throughout this period of time. Opposite Venus, that's us versus others, right? Can we be our true selves? Jupiter also in the sign of Aries right now in relationships, or are we deceiving ourselves? Are we lying to ourselves? Are we filling ourselves with this Neptunian fantasy and over idealism and false hope that is actually going to lead to some type of discouragement and just ultimately working against us in some type of a way? Mars squaring Neptune, Mars ruling the full moon in Aries that we have going on. But like I said, Saturn is involved in this party as well. The moon in Aries is forming a pretty tight sextile. We have Saturn right now at 19 degrees of Aquarius. The moon is at 17 degrees of Aries. So that's only a 2-degree orb off conjunction sextile to Saturn in Aquarius. And also a sextile to Mars. Mars currently is at 23 degrees Gemini, so that's a bit of a wider orb, but still Saturn and Mars are still in this, relative trine that we have going on between each other. And I will talk about the sun being the third party in a loose grand trine that we have playing out, but with the moon sort of as the loose midpoint between Saturn and Aquarius and Mars and Gemini right now. Mars ruling this moon, the healing, this Chiron energy, the healing that we are gaining now is assisting our ability to use our energy wisely and productively and put it towards achieving our goals. Mars and trying to Saturn, this is master builder energy. This is legacy building energy. This is a tremendous ability to use focused, like hard work, motivation, willpower, and channel it into something really like masterful and like profound work and feat of art and labor that is successful and enduring and lasting. And this is legacy building energy that we have with this Mars in trying to Saturn and these air signs that are playing out. And I feel like this is, telling us that the healing that Chiron's influence is trying to bring to us is directly related to helping us make some good, solid choices and decisions about what actions we want to take to restructure Saturn retrograde, the foundations of our lives and our world going forward. Saturn retrograde in the sign of Aquarius in alignment with our authentic truth. So those are the aspects that we have playing out specifically in regards to the full moon itself, the moon making aspect. We also, like I said, Mars ruling this moon in the square to Neptune. This is really activating this dynamic. I've been talking about this over the past several days, and I will be continuing to talk about this as this aspect builds exact. We have this aspect unfolding all month long. Mars and square to Neptune. On one hand, this is passive aggressive energy. This is avoiding addressing things that need to be addressed, making choices, making decisions, this is sort of wanting to retreat and run away from things. It also can really represent like deceitful actions, lies, deceptions, especially going on over the news, the media, narratives, projections. This is also like angry oceans, you guys. This could be like a lot of big storms coming up, wars, fights, aggression over oil. This is a battle for the mind. This is a battle of the narrative, a battle for the just the perception essentially of the greater whole, of the collective. And with Mars and Gemini, there's a lot of polarities. This is polarities sort of being diluted and like pitted against each other. We need to be very, very careful about getting in fights, getting in arguments, and specifically taking any type of like rash or impulsive action as a result of something that we're seeing or something that we're reading or something that we're hearing or something that is being projected towards us, because there is a huge push right now, like along the lines of propaganda, like trying to get people to take action based on an emotional response to some type of narrative or some type of an idea or some type of understanding that is likely to be cloaked in deceit or illusion or lack of groundedness, lack of reality. And Mars and square to Neptune, you guys, this is just can be disappointments that come through acting. So we want to be very, very careful with the actions that we are taking right now. And this is, not the most fortunate, blessed aspect in the context of having an Aries full moon, because like I said, Aries ruled by Mars. Mars wants to act. Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. Like let's go jump. Like let's go take a risk. Let's go take a chance. Like let's launch out and do something new. We have the courage and the motivation. Like let's take some action. Let's make something happen, but not, you guys, not when we have Mars in a square to Neptune. That's just, and also not only Mars in a square to Neptune, but Mars also in an aspect to Saturn, because Mars, and that's the other aspect that I want to talk about that we have going on that I feel like is playing more of a significant role. We said that the moon itself is in the sextile aspect to Saturn, 2-degree orb. That's really close. That's tight. And then we also have the sun forming this loose grand trine in the sky, with this sun at 17 Libra, Mars at 23 Gemini, and Saturn retrograde at 19 Aquarius. So this is this grand trine that we have playing out. And again, Mars and Saturn together, like this is a positive, productive, practical, very useful, efficient energy, but it wants slow and steady effort. Slow and steady wins the race. Deliberate, calculated actions and decisions. Careful planning. Focus, concentration, like quieting the mind, Mars and Gemini, not like bombastic, all over the place action. This is careful, well planned, well thought out action. And remember also, Saturn slows things down. Saturn really wants us to be very careful, very meticulous, like I said, very discerning about whatever process we have going on. And Mars is also preparing to go retrograde, slow down in its motion. So there is two big indications right there that we need to sort of be very use a lot of discretion in regards to the choices, Mars and Gemini, the decisions, the options, the actions that we are taking in this energy. I do feel like, a very reflective process. Low physical energy is likely. A day for meditation, and a period really more so for meditation, again, on what we have learned and who we are becoming now, and perhaps these wounds that are being triggered within us, where they're stemming from, and what impact they're having on our ability to consciously experience the relationships, Libra cycle, that we want to in our lives. Now, another big thing that we have going on for this cycle is, of course, Saturn still in the square to Uranus. Now, I've been talking about Saturn in aspect to Mars, and this is definitely in the sun, this grand trine that we have in air signs going on, the sun, Saturn, and Mars. This is perhaps some very inspired ideas that are coming to us over this period of time of how we can concretely start to ground and restructure our reality and these plans that we are making. There is likely to be sort of an emphasis on our goals for the future, on the direction that we are thinking that we want to head right now, and what we might need to do in order to get there. But this is an air signs. This is not indicating actually, taking the action fire or grounding it into physical reality yet. earth signs. This is a very us thinking about it, us envisioning, us reflecting, us meditating upon, or getting some good ideas, gaining some solutions as well. This grand trine with the sun, Mars, and Saturn could really be bringing some brilliant solutions to long-standing problems that we've been dealing with as well. But generally, Saturn square Uranus in this picture as well, exact for the fourth time for this specific full moon. This is really throwing it back to things that began happening February, June, December of last year of 2021. There could definitely be exposure, some things being exposed to us in the news and in the media. Even though we need to be very careful about what we're seeing, we have to remember Mercury ruling Gemini, where Mars is right now, and ruling the mind and the news and the media and thoughts, has recently stationed direct and is in a trine to Pluto, seeing the truth, seeing the root issues, getting to the bottom of things. This aspect is also helping in our Chiron energy dynamic that we have unfolding this month. But with this being the fourth Saturn-Uranus square in exact alignment, in exact square to the degree for our full moon, exposure, see the full light of the moon, the darkness being lit up while we have Mercury in the trine to Pluto and Mars ruling this moon in the sign of Mercury. Again, we may be learning something that exposes something that was going on over the course of the past 2 years that may have been keeping us in a state of instability or unbalance, lack of balance, or contributing to some of these major upheavals and shifts that we've been going on, or that has just been giving us some type of issue or some type of problem. There is potential for problem resolution, solutions to things that have been long withstanding to come in with this energy as well. But Saturn square Uranus, upheavals, shaking the foundation of things, also faded realignments, but radical change. And again, this could have to do with things that began happening winter of 2021 and up until this period of time right now. Some type of light being shown on them, gaining some type of an awareness that could be really motivating us in one way or another. But again, this is not the time to act. And a lot of things that we felt were stable and reliable in terms of things that we've been committed to for long periods of time, I think may also start to crumble perhaps in this energy in maybe some unexpected ways. I mentioned this earlier, but this is another thing that needs to be spoken about in regards to our full moon chart today, and that is the fact that Pluto stationed direct yesterday. So on the 8th, Pluto stationed direct in the sky, and this is big. This is like thrones around the world are trembling in fear with Pluto direct right now in the end of Capricorn. This is putting a major emphasis on world leaders, governments, corruption, abuses of power, shifting power dynamics, dissolving power structures of the past, because Pluto rules power in all of its form, and abuses of power and corruption and coercion. And in the sign of Capricorn, this is also breaking down and transforming and dissolving and regenerating, tearing down the power and control dynamics of the past if they are in any way out of alignment with like purity and truth and integrity. Anywhere where distortion or corruption or just being like evil and stuff has gone on within the upper levels of government, world government, even like any type of power, anywhere that power has been being abused. With Mercury in the trine to Pluto for this full moon, shining the light, Mercury ruling the position of Mars, Mars ruling the moon, Pluto direct, there is likely to be some revelations or some exposure of some abuses of power that have been going on within powerful people, powerful organizations, ruling classes, ruling sectors of society, leadership, governments generally. Also, this is major financial stuff too. Venus also rules in Taurus, she rules, and where Uranus is, she rules resources, supply chains, economies, like the larger financial systems of things and stuff like that, financial markets. And in Libra, also rules finances and money. And Chiron also rules wealth and value and finances. And with Venus and Chiron, that's another thing. Venus and Chiron are in an opposition for this as well. Chiron is at 15 Aries, Venus is at 14 Libra. Venus and Chiron are almost exact opposition. These are two financial planets, basically. facing off with each other. I do feel like there may be some turbulent things going on in financial markets, with money, with value of things, resources, supply chains, fuel, all this type of stuff, you guys. I don't know. But I feel like this is indicating some big time shifts and changes that are coming. But the thing is, with this energy, this is the energy that is breaking down old systems that are no longer working. I do feel like there could be some type of major financial like overhaul that is sort of on the brink of things, the way that this energy is presenting and the way that stuff it seems to be coming together. But and this may be things that we're discovering the truth about as well. But overall, Mercury in trine Pluto, Pluto direct, powerful influence. This is empowering world leaders and stuff like that as well. Empowering people in places of power also, exposing corruption and abuses of power on one hand, but also empowering those that not caught up in the corruption. This is like the true leaders, you guys. I feel like this is the true leaders standing up, okay? And the false leaders who have been abusing their power to stay in power sort of crumbling. This is sort of like that type of dynamic playing out. Great awakening energy. This full moon is definitely bringing great awakening energy and is definitely playing a significant role in our transition into the age of Aquarius. Let's talk for a minute about Sabian symbols, you guys, and then we will wrap this one up. First of all, we have the moon itself. This is, like I said, it's the exact placement for this particular full moon, 16 degrees and 32 minutes of the signs of Aries and Libra, but I'm rounding up a degree to take into consideration the Sabian symbol. So we're looking at 17 degrees of Aries for the position of the full moon itself. That Sabian symbol is two prim spinsters sitting in silence. And my interpretation of this particular symbol in the context of this energy, again, is showing us the relationship to our own selves, like putting us in a position to sort of retreat or reflect or meditate on our own relationship to our own selves and what that really means for us in the context of the emotional healing that we need to go through at this point in time. A very reflective period, considering our own emotional needs in the context of our relationship dynamics and commitments as well. And I feel like we're choosing ourselves. You know what I mean? Like we may have always chosen the other person. We may have always chosen the relationship. We may have always chosen the image. We may have always chosen, the projection before, but this time I feel like that's the change. That's the switch. That's the turning point. I feel like now we're choosing ourselves, and the impact that is having is holding a less of a significance than it had maybe all of our lives up until right now. And also, like I said, with Venus combust in the conjunction to the sun as well, lost in the rays of the sun, greater focus on the self and our own true heart-based needs. Mercury and Venus having been in this mutual reception too, rediscovering our own personal truth, what truly is in our heart, our own preferences, our own wants, our own desires, like what abundance and love and value truly means to us, our own personal value, our own self-worth, like this internalized, with all of these planets retrograde, this internalized rediscovery of these truths. And then as we're coming into this full moon and the conjunction to Chiron with Venus compressed as well, the focus, the priority on healing our soul so that we can experience better relationships that are more aligned with us, that really set us free and set our heart free and allow us to really feel fulfilled moving forward. Now we have the position of the sun today, of course, in a polar opposition to the moon, 17 degrees of Libra. That Sabian symbol is a retired sea captain, watches ships entering and leaving the harbor. And again, I feel like this is another symbolic indication of this period of reflection, you guys. Watching an old retired sea captain, watching ships entering and leaving the harbor, reflecting on our experiences, all we've done, all we've learned, the wisdom and the knowledge that we've gained through these experiences, and also then in that context considering what we're going to do next. What is our next move? What is our next chapter? What is our next phase of growth? What is the next road that we're going to take leading us to this new phase of our journey in the context of all that we've experienced so far. This card also, or this symbol also reminds me of the Three of Wands in the tarot, like watching ships come out, watching ships come in, sort of deliberating and pondering and, waiting, again, reflecting on all the wisdom that we've gained, Chiron, and, what we have overcome and who we are becoming now, and not jumping out into action. We're not jumping back out into one of those boats. We're, considering everything that we've been through and who we're becoming now, and making, really reflecting on what our next phase is, like what path we want to walk down next. We are not jumping onto it. We are just really meditating on that. Mars ruling the full moon itself, 23 degrees of Gemini, 3 fledglings in a nest high in a tree. Like, again, taking a pause before we jump off and try to fly, developing our skills, practicing, making sure we are prepared, building up our strength, building up our endurance, knowing what we want to do, how we're going to do it, and where we're going to go before we choose to act. The degree of Mars itself for this full moon. And then we have Venus ruling our Libra cycle, ruler of all of this energy right now, really, because we are in a Libra cycle. 14 degrees of Libra, you guys. This Sabian symbol, in the heat of the noon hour, a man takes a siesta. The heat of the noon hour. Aries, cardinal fire, the full moon, a man takes a siesta. Again, like, it's every single symbol to me is saying the same thing. Mars in square to Neptune, saying the same thing. Mars in aspect to Saturn, saying the same thing. We need to slow down. Slow, careful progress. We are the tortoise, you guys. We are not the hare. The hare loses the day in this, in the tale itself, and also in this game that is unfolding of life right now as this is playing out. Venus at that degree, if it gets too heated, if it gets too intense, if it's a little too spicy out there, guys, if it starts getting inflamed, we need to take a break. We need to retreat. We need to take a rest. We need to take a rain check. We need to cancel plans. We need to go to bed. We need to just chill out, like, bring ourselves back to our own personal grounding. And again, we're talking about this more reflective energy, this more meditative energy, and a need to remove ourselves from anything that may be like overstimulating us to a point that we are just like overheating or becoming like over exhilarated in one way or another. We really just sort of want to have an ability to remove ourselves from situations that are overstimulating to us in some way, or that we just feel are too much for one reason or another. There is, like, universe is literally telling us that there is no harm in, stepping back and taking a time out if things just are a little too much as we're going through the course of this period of time. And then we have Chiron, very important right now, in the conjunction to this full moon itself. 15 degrees of Aries, that Sabian symbol is an Indian weaving a blanket. Things are coming together, you guys, and our healing journey, our hero's journey, this cycle is a crucial thread being woven through the cosmic story that is unfolding right now. And we must heal, you guys. We must transmute. We must alchemize. We must transcend in order so that this whole picture, this whole cosmic masterpiece, essentially, Mars also in the trine to Saturn right now, this whole age of Aquarius can come together, can come into formation. Like, I feel like Chiron being at an Indian weaving a blanket, I feel like this is talking about the significance of our personal thread, of our personal transcendence, of our personal transmutation and alchemization and hero's journey, and coming to our personal state of self-mastery, like the importance, the significance that plays, and the ability for this entire overall transition of ages, this whole picture, this whole cosmic story to come into place and to happen. And then we have Mercury, 29 degrees of Virgo, very strong and powerful in his home sign right now. That Sabian symbol is a man gaining secret knowledge from an ancient scroll he was reading in the trine to Pluto and Capricorn. Like I've been saying, yes, secrets revealed that help us heal, regenerate, and transform. We are likely, and this is also could be relating to the past and to things that have begun to transpire, or again, to these like childhood or generational cycles of wounding and trauma that are coming up right now. A man gaining secret knowledge from an ancient scroll he was reading. Secrets are definitely being revealed to us that are assisting us in this process of healing, overcoming, transmuting, alchemizing, rising up in the way that this energy is coming together and playing out. And then last but not least, I wanted to talk about the position of Jupiter as well, also in the sign of Aries, ruled by Mars, where our full moon is playing out. Jupiter moves to 2 degrees of Aries just in time for this full moon. That Sabian symbol is a comedian entertaining the group. And remember, Jupiter rules success and blessings and brings optimism and hope and confidence and faith and trust, and in the sign of Aries, in ourselves. And I feel like Jupiter's presence in Aries at this degree for this Aries full moon is telling us, if we can take ourselves a bit less seriously and sort of try to view our circumstances more in terms of like a bigger picture satire or some type of like dark comedy or something, and less in terms of like a woe is me like drama or tragedy or like literal horror story or whatever is playing out, it is just likely to give us a bit more success in being able to navigate the challenges that may be presenting themselves. Trying to view our circumstances through the most lighthearted and comedic lens, perhaps, that we could possibly help us to navigate this period of time with just a bit more success and positivity, and sort of like the wind going in our sails a little bit with Jupiter's influence. Finally, you guys, my like summary, sort of keyword summary of this energy that we have playing out for this full moon: reflection, meditation, careful consideration, discernment, maturity, slow-paced movement and progress towards our goals. Slow and steady, tortoise beats the hare, like I said, taking a pause, taking a rest when needed, prioritizing personal truth and emotional needs, being independent, taking things seriously, searching for truth, digging for truth, and healing our soul. So you guys, that is basically what I have to say about this full moon as we have it playing out right now in the sign of Aries. Let's grab a synchronicity card, you guys, see what message God, Spirit, Universe has for us over the course of this next couple of weeks. And while this full moon plays out, what do we need to keep in mind? What can benefit us? And there we have one shooting out. It says, yes. So strange. Lately, we've been getting these yes and no cards. They don't usually come out, but if there is something that you've been wondering about, there may be this may be pertaining to you. The answer may be yes, but let's grab another card. I want to know a specific message that can benefit us as we are going through this period of time. What do we need to know? What do we need to sort of meditate on while we are in our periods of reflection? And it says, forgive. Chiron, you guys, transmutation. Forgiveness is a major part of the hero's journey process, and everyone who goes through that process comes to realize and comes to understand that forgiveness was truly like one of the most important aspects of the realizations that healing process brings us towards. Wow. Okay, it says forgive. Be not afraid for the pestilence that walketh in darkness. Psalms 91. You are in the dark when you indulge in depression, feeling sorry for yourself, anger, or ill will. When you condemn yourself or others, these are pestilences of the darkness. Anger towards others reflects your emotionally charged state. You violate the law of harmony, and it will bring you trouble. Forgive yourself and others, and hail God in your midst to heal your anger. Pray, thank you, God, for removing my anger. And like, honestly, I don't feel like we could have gotten a better card for this energy we have playing out. That is one thing that I didn't say. I mean, anger could definitely be a strong theme. We do have Mars in Gemini. We have an Aries full moon going on, opposite Venus. Like, this could definitely be bringing up anger. But like, I guess I did say it as a result, most likely, of us not understanding things clearly, or misperceptions or fights that are going on as a result of polarized viewpoints, or also Mars and Gemini, like jealousy and stuff like that could be a very strong theme. And in the aspect and the dynamic of the Chiron influence and the wounding that may be coming up in regards to relationships, forgiveness really is probably, this card is really speaking some hardcore, I feel like very significant truth in regards to what we should be paying attention to, embracing, and sort of going on as this time plays out. Very, very on point. I can't believe this is the card we got. Anyways, so forgiveness, you guys, is something that we need to really be focusing on as we are going through this healing process. And forgiveness, of course, is a very crucial part of the healing process. And again, everyone who has gone through the hero's journey realizes the significance of this dynamic of that process. So forgive, you guys, and it's definitely going to benefit us over this period of time. So that's what I have to say. Message from the stars, and that seems to be how this energy is likely to play out over this next couple weeks, over this period of time. If you guys liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button, totally free, and it really helps my channel grow. Very, very grateful. Share it with your friends, you guys, if you think that they would enjoy and like this type of astrology content too. And of course, you guys, please leave me comments. I love your comments. I love knowing how these energies affecting you. I love hearing what you have going on as these energies are playing out. Thank you all so much for being here. And come back with me on Monday, you guys. We will have a fresh week of astrology to get into, and I'm sure there will be a lot playing out as we are moving through this full moon in Aries cycle. I'll be here. You should be here too. You don't want to miss it, and I will see you then, everybody. Have a beautiful full moon, and until next time, bye guys.